The great hall of planet Vera shimmered under the glow of floating crystal lights. Hundreds of alien warriors stood in silence, their silver armor reflecting the soft blue radiance that filled the chamber. At the center, the royal family waited on a high platform made of polished stone, decorated with golden symbols and ancient runes. Among the crowd stood a young human soldier named Ethan, his plain uniform looking out of place among the shining armor of the Veran soldiers. He was there only as a guest, a quiet observer invited after his small but brave act in saving one of the royal guards during a recent skirmish. He never imagined that this day would change his life forever. The air was tense with expectation. Everyone had gathered for the sacred ritual, the choosing of the bonded protector. Every generation, the Princess of Vera would choose one warrior to bond with through a mystical connection that joined souls and strengthened the royal bloodline. This bond was not just political, it was spiritual. The chosen protector would become the princess's closest ally, her shield and sometimes her heart. No one knew who she would pick, but everyone assumed it would be one of the elite alien warriors standing proudly before her. The tall golden doors opened, and the sound of soft music filled the air. Princess Lyra walked in gracefully, her silver crown sparkling as light fell upon her soft pink hair. Her armor was elegant, made of golden plates that curved perfectly to her form, shining with small jewels at the edges. She looked calm, but her eyes, bright and full of mystery, carried something deeper, something that no one around her could read. As she stepped onto the platform, the room grew silent. Every eye followed her. Even Ethan, who had been trying to stay unnoticed, could not look away. Lyra's father, the King of Vera, raised his hand. "Let the ceremony begin," he said in a deep, commanding voice. The crowd bowed their heads as the princess walked down the line of warriors. One by one, she looked into their eyes as if searching for something invisible. Each warrior straightened, proud and ready. They all wanted the honor of being chosen. Yet as she passed them, she said nothing. She walked slowly, her expression unreadable. Ethan kept his head low, watching quietly. He felt strange being there, a human among aliens, standing in a hall that smelled of power and ancient traditions. Lyra stopped suddenly. Her gaze shifted not to the decorated warriors, but to the far corner where Ethan stood. For a moment, no one noticed, but her eyes locked onto him, calm, deep and searching. Ethan froze. His heart beat faster. He didn't understand why the princess was looking at him. He wasn't even part of the ceremony. A whisper moved through the hall as people noticed her turning away from the warriors. The king frowned, his sharp eyes following her every step. Then, before anyone could speak, Lyra lifted her hand and pointed directly at Ethan. Her voice, soft yet clear, echoed through the grand hall. "I want him." The entire room fell silent. The music stopped. Even the air seemed to pause. Hundreds of eyes turned to the human standing awkwardly at the back. Ethan's face went pale. He blinked, unsure if he had heard correctly. "Him? Why him?" The aliens began murmuring among themselves, disbelief spreading like fire. "A human?" someone whispered. "Impossible," said another. The king's expression hardened, and the queen covered her mouth in shock. The guards hesitated, unsure what to do. Ethan looked around helplessly, feeling every gaze pierce into him. "Your Highness," one of the generals spoke carefully. "Perhaps there is some mistake?" Lyra turned her head slightly, her calm gaze silencing him instantly. "There is no mistake," she said firmly. "I have made my choice." The king stood from his throne, his deep voice filling the hall. "Lyra, my daughter, you cannot choose a human. The bond must be between our kind. You know the old laws." Lyra looked at him, her eyes filled with quiet defiance. "The bond chooses the soul, not the blood," she replied. The crowd gasped. No one had ever spoken to the king that way before. Ethan stood frozen, not daring to move, not even to breathe. His mind raced with confusion. Why would she choose him? A stranger, a soldier from another world. The king's voice softened, but carried warning. "You are risking the balance of our empire, my daughter." Lyra didn't look away. "Then let the balance change," she said. Her words were gentle but powerful, and in that moment even the guards lowered their weapons slightly, unsure of what to do next. Ethan felt a strange warmth spreading through his chest, a pull toward the princess that he couldn't explain. Her eyes met his again, and for a moment everything else disappeared. The whispers, the fear, the shock all faded. There was something in her gaze that felt both familiar and distant. as if they had met before in another time, another life. His hands trembled, and he didn't know if it was fear or something else entirely. The king finally sighed heavily and gestured to his guards. "Take the human to the inner chambers. We will discuss this further." The soldiers approached Ethan carefully, but Lyra stepped between them and him. "No one touches him," she said coldly. Her voice carried authority that even the guards dared not question. They stopped, glancing nervously at the king. The king said nothing. His silence was enough. Lyra turned back to Ethan, her expression softening. She walked closer, her footsteps echoing softly in the grand hall. Ethan's heart pounded in his chest. She stopped just a few steps away, her eyes meeting his again. Her voice dropped to a whisper, calm and strange. "You are not what you seem, human," she said. Ethan stared at her, lost for words. Around them, the hall remained frozen, every soul waiting, every breath held. In that one quiet moment, destiny began to move, and neither of them knew that their lives and the fate of two worlds had just been forever changed. The royal hall slowly emptied after the shocking ceremony, but whispers still echoed through the corridors of the Golden Palace. The words of the princess, "I want him," repeated in every corner of the court. No one could understand what had just happened. A human, chosen as the bonded protector of the royal heir of Vera? It was beyond belief. Ethan sat quietly in a guarded chamber, his heart pounding in confusion. The room was large but cold, filled with alien symbols and glowing blue crystals that pulsed softly like living things. 2 armored guards stood by the door, watching him carefully. He could still feel the weight of hundreds of eyes from earlier, judging him, questioning his worth. He wasn't supposed to be there. He was just a soldier who happened to help an alien scout during a desert patrol. Now he was somehow at the center of a royal storm. He tried to make sense of it, but nothing added up. Why had Princess Lyra chosen him? What did she mean when she said, "You are not what you seem"? He rubbed his forehead, his mind heavy with questions. The air around him felt strange, thicker, almost humming. Sometimes when he closed his eyes, he could hear faint whispers, like voices calling from far away. The large door creaked open, and Lyra stepped inside, her long silver cloak flowing softly behind her. She had removed her crown, but her presence was still powerful. Ethan stood up instantly, unsure of what to say or do. "Your Highness," he said quietly, lowering his head. Lyra smiled gently. "You don't need to bow to me," she said, her voice calm but serious. "Not anymore." Ethan frowned slightly. "Not anymore?" he repeated, confused. Lyra stepped closer, her eyes studying him carefully. "Because you are now bound to me," she said. "By my choice, and by something greater than either of us." Ethan blinked, trying to understand. "Bound? I didn't agree to anything," he said, nervous. "I don't even know what's happening." Lyra tilted her head slightly, her expression soft but unreadable. "The bond doesn't wait for permission," she said. "When I chose you, it began on its own. The energy recognized something in you, something hidden." Before Ethan could ask what she meant, he felt a sudden pulse on his right hand. He looked down in shock. A faint golden mark was glowing on his skin, like a small circle surrounded by strange alien lines. The same pattern shimmered faintly on Lyra's wrist. His eyes widened. What is this?" he asked. Lyra looked at the mark, her voice turning almost a whisper. "It is the seal of Vera. It only appears when the soul bond is real." She paused for a moment, then added, "It means our fates are now linked." Ethan stepped back, his mind spinning. "Linked? But I'm human. How is that even possible?" Lyra smiled faintly, though her eyes looked sad. "That's what the council is asking right now," she said. "They're angry, confused. The king wants to cancel the bond, but the old magic of our ancestors doesn't break that easily." Outside, a loud noise echoed through the corridor, the deep voices of royal guards and council members arguing. Lyra glanced toward the door, then turned back to Ethan. "They will come for you soon," she said quietly. "They think you're a mistake, Or worse, a danger. Ethan frowned. A danger? I didn't do anything wrong. Lyra stepped closer, lowering her voice. They don't need a reason to fear what they don't understand, she said. And humans are not trusted here. Ethan's chest tightened. He remembered the looks from earlier, the way every alien stared at him like he didn't belong. So what now? He asked. Do I just wait here until they decide what to do with me? Lyra's expression softened. No, she said. You'll stay in the royal quarters under my protection. No one will touch you as long as I live. He looked at her, surprised by her certainty. Why are you doing this? He asked. You barely know me. Lyra hesitated before answering. Her voice became distant, almost like she was speaking to herself. Because I saw something, she said. When I looked into your eyes during the ceremony, I saw light. Ethan frowned. Light? She nodded slowly. A strange energy, bright and pure. It's something I've never seen before, not in any Varen. It called to me as if our souls already knew each other. Her words left him silent. He didn't understand what she meant, but deep inside, something about it felt true. For a brief moment, he remembered flashes of dreams he had since arriving on Vera, visions of stars, a silver crown, and a soft voice whispering his name. He had ignored them, thinking they were just dreams. But now, he wasn't so sure. The door opened suddenly, and an elderly alien dressed in silver robes entered. His expression was cold and sharp. Your Highness, he said firmly, the council demands an explanation. The king is furious. This union cannot continue. Lyra faced him calmly. The bond has already begun, Elder. You know it cannot be undone. The elder narrowed his eyes. Then we will find another way. Perhaps if the human were to disappear. He didn't finish the sentence, but the meaning was clear. Ethan felt a chill run down his spine. Lyra's voice turned hard. Touch him, and you will answer to me. Her tone was calm but carried the weight of authority. The elder looked uneasy but bowed slightly. You risk everything for a mistake, he said before leaving. When the door closed, the silence between them felt heavy. Ethan looked at her, his voice low. They want to kill me, don't they? Lyra didn't answer right away. Finally, she whispered, They want to protect the order of our world, but they don't see what I see. Ethan sat down slowly, his mind racing. So what happens now? He asked. Lyra turned to the window, looking out at the twin moons of Vera glowing in the night sky. Now, she said softly, we find out why fate brought you here. She looked back at him, her eyes shining faintly with light. And we find out what you really are, Ethan. Outside the chamber, in the dark hallways of the palace, shadows moved quietly, hidden figures whispering orders. One of them spoke softly into a communicator. The human must not survive the night. The sound faded into the distance as the scene closed, leaving only the echo of Lyra's voice in the quiet room, a promise and a warning, both written in the same breath. The night on planet Vera was calm, but Ethan could not sleep. He sat by the tall window in his new chamber, watching the twin moons rise above the golden city. Everything looked peaceful, yet deep inside, he could feel something stirring, a strange energy moving through his body. The glowing mark on his hand pulsed faintly, matching the rhythm of his heartbeat. Every time it glowed, he felt connected to something, or someone. He turned his hand slowly, staring at it. What are you doing to me? He whispered. The mark shimmered in response, and for a second, he thought he heard a soft voice, Lyra's voice, whispering his name. He looked around startled, but the room was empty. He rubbed his eyes and took a deep breath. Maybe he was just imagining things. Suddenly, the door opened quietly. Lyra entered, dressed not in her royal armor, but in a simple silver robe. Her long pink hair fell loosely over her shoulders, glowing faintly in the moonlight. Ethan stood up, surprised. Princess, he began, but she raised her hand gently. "It's just Lyra tonight," she said softly. "No titles." She walked closer, her eyes studying him carefully. "You felt it, didn't you?" she asked. Ethan hesitated, then nodded. "The mark, it glows. Sometimes I think I can hear your voice." Lyra nodded slowly. "The bond is growing stronger. When two souls are linked, they begin to feel each other. Thoughts, emotions, even pain." Ethan frowned. "But why me? I'm just a soldier. There's nothing special about me." Lyra looked out the window for a moment, her expression distant. "You say that," she said quietly. "But the ancient bond magic only reacts to power, to light hidden deep within a soul. It chose you because you are more than you believe." Her words left him silent. He didn't know what kind of light she was talking about. He felt like an ordinary man trapped in an extraordinary world. Then, Lyra turned back to him. "I need to teach you something," she said. "If the bond continues to grow, you must learn to control it, otherwise it could hurt you. Or me." She extended her hand toward him. "Trust me?" Ethan hesitated for a moment, then nodded, and placed his hand in hers. The moment their skin touched, the marks on their hands flared with golden light. A rush of warmth filled the air, and Ethan felt his heart racing faster. Images flashed through his mind. Stars, strange landscapes, and a bright blue crystal buried deep under the planet's surface. He gasped and pulled back slightly, breathing hard. "What was that?" he asked. Lyra's eyes glowed softly. "The bond showed you a memory of our ancestors," she said. "It means the connection between us is now complete." Ethan ran a hand through his hair, still shaken. "It felt so real," he said, "like I was standing inside someone else's memory." Lyra nodded. "That's how the bond works. It doesn't just connect minds, it shares everything. You will see what I see, feel what I feel. And soon others will sense it too." He looked at her in confusion. "Others?" Before she could answer, a loud crash echoed from outside the chamber. Lyra turned sharply, her eyes narrowing. "Stay here," she said quickly. She moved toward the door, but Ethan followed. "Wait, what's happening?" Lyra stopped and listened. The sound of armored footsteps filled the corridor. "The council," she said in a low voice. "They're making their move sooner than I thought." Ethan felt his stomach twist. "They're coming for me, aren't they?" Lyra gave a small nod. "They think if they end your life, the bond will fade. But they're wrong." The door suddenly burst open and 3 guards stepped in with energy staffs glowing blue. "By order of the King's Council," one of them said coldly, "the human is to be detained for examination." Lyra stepped in front of Ethan, her voice steady. "You will not touch him." "Princess," the lead guard said, lowering his weapon slightly, "please don't make this harder than it needs to be." The king commands nothing in my chamber," Lyra interrupted sharply. Her eyes glowed brighter now, golden light surrounding her like a shield. The guards hesitated, fear flickering across their faces. Ethan felt the same energy flow through him again. The mark on his hand glowed fiercely, and a sudden force burst out from him like a wave. The guards were thrown back by invisible energy, their weapons clattering across the floor. Ethan stared at his hands, shocked. I didn't mean to." Lyra looked at him in surprise, then in awe. "You channeled the bond's power," she whispered. "But that shouldn't be possible for a human." The guards groaned and slowly got up, retreating toward the hallway. "This isn't over," one of them said before they disappeared down the corridor. When the door closed, the room fell silent again. Ethan looked at Lyra, breathing hard. "What's happening to me?" Lyra stepped closer, her expression serious. "The bond is unlocking your true energy," she said. "Something ancient sleeps inside you. Something that even I don't understand yet." Ethan sat down, his hands shaking. "So I'm supposed to believe I have magic now?" he asked with a weak laugh. Lyra smiled faintly. "Not magic, power. The kind that once united 2 worlds before they were torn apart." He looked at her in confusion. 2 worlds? Lyra nodded. "It's time you know the truth. Humans were not born from Earth alone. Long ago, your ancestors came from Vera, banished after the Great War. You are their descendant, Ethan. The bond only chose you because your blood remembers what this world forgot. Ethan's mind went blank. His whole life, his home, his identity, suddenly felt uncertain. You're saying, I'm part alien? He asked. Lyra's eyes softened. You are more than human, Ethan. And now, so long as we live, our souls are one. Outside, the storm clouds gathered over the Golden City. In the distance, a dark figure watched from a high tower, Commander Thal, Lyra's former betrothed. His cold eyes glowed with fury as he spoke into his communicator. The princess has bonded with the human. Prepare the strike team. If the council won't stop him, I will. Back inside the chamber, Ethan looked down at his glowing mark. The light pulsed faster now, beating like a second heart. He didn't understand what fate had chosen for him, but one thing was clear. Nothing about his life would ever be normal again. And as Lyra placed a hand on his shoulder, a strange calm filled him. Somewhere deep inside, he felt it. A connection that was both terrifying and beautiful. Whatever this power was, it had only just begun to awaken. The palace of Vera was restless that night. Every hall whispered with tension, and the golden walls seemed to hold their breath. Rumors had already spread. The alien princess had bonded with a human, and now the council was divided. Some believed it was fate, others called it a curse. Ethan stood beside the window of the royal library, staring at the city below. The twin moons shone brightly, but the streets were full of moving shadows, guards, spies, and watchers. Ever since the bond awakened, he could feel everything more sharply. Sounds, light, even emotions that weren't his own. Somewhere deep inside the palace, he could feel Lyra's presence like a faint heartbeat, calm and warm. The bond between them was growing stronger each hour. The door opened behind him and Lyra stepped inside, still dressed in her ceremonial armor. She looked tired but graceful, her eyes carrying the same quiet fire. You shouldn't be near the windows, she said softly. There are eyes everywhere. Ethan turned toward her and gave a faint smile. I'm starting to notice that, he said. Feels like your whole world is watching me. Lyra walked closer, her expression serious. They are. Some want to understand you. Others want to destroy you. She stopped beside him and looked out at the city. The council met tonight. My father wants to send you away, far from Vera. He says it's for your safety, but I know what that really means, Ethan frowned. You think he's lying? Lyra's voice hardened. If you leave under their watch, you won't come back alive. The words hit Ethan like a cold wind. He had suspected it, but hearing her say it made it real. So what do we do? He asked quietly. Lyra took a deep breath. We leave tonight, Ethan blinked. Leave, as in, run away? She nodded firmly. There's an old sanctuary in the forests of Valora. My mother once told me it's protected by ancient energy, a place even the council cannot reach. If we can make it there, we'll be safe for a while. He stared at her, unsure if she was serious. You'd really give up your throne? Your family? For this? Lyra looked into his eyes, her voice low and full of emotion. The moment I chose you, my life as a princess ended. What matters now is truth, and I can't find it here. For a moment, they stood in silence, the air thick with unspoken feelings. Ethan finally nodded. Then let's go. They moved quickly through the dark palace corridors. Lyra led the way, her cloak flowing behind her like a shadow. Every corner they turned, she checked for guards. The sound of their footsteps echoed softly on the marble floors. As they neared the outer gate, Ethan felt a strange pulse of energy through the bond. Fear, but not his own. He stopped. Someone's coming. Lyra turned sharply. Before she could answer, a voice called out from the shadows. Going somewhere, Your Highness? Commander Thal stepped into the moonlight, his black armor gleaming. His sharp eyes glowed faintly with anger. Behind him stood 6 armed soldiers, weapons ready. Lyra froze, her jaw tightening. Thal, she said quietly. Move aside, Thal smirked. You disgrace your crown, Lyra, bonding with a human. Running away like a criminal? You've brought shame to your bloodline. Ethan stepped forward, his fists clenched. You don't know anything about me. Thal's expression darkened. I know enough. You're a threat, and I'll end this before it spreads. He raised his weapon, a long energy spear that glowed blue. The guards behind him aimed their staffs at Ethan and Lyra. Lyra stepped protectively in front of Ethan, her armor shimmering with faint golden light. If you hurt him, you'll answer to me, she warned. Thal laughed bitterly. Then so be it. He lunged forward with lightning speed. The spear clashed against Lyra's arm guard, sending sparks flying. Ethan ducked, grabbing a fallen guard's weapon. He wasn't trained for this kind of fight, but something inside him guided his movements. When Thal swung again, Ethan blocked the strike instinctively, his hand glowing with the same golden light as Lyra's. Thal stumbled back, shocked. "Impossible," he hissed. "No human can channel that power." Ethan felt the energy building inside him, hot and wild. The mark on his hand burned like fire. Without thinking, he thrust his palm forward and a wave of golden force blasted from his hand, throwing Thal and his guards backward. They crashed against the marble pillars with a roar. The room fell silent. The air shimmered with golden dust, and Ethan stood trembling, staring at his hand. "I didn't know I could do that," he said breathlessly. Lyra's eyes were wide with awe. "The bond? It's evolving faster than I thought," she whispered. "You're awakening." Before they could recover, an alarm echoed through the palace. Red lights flashed along the walls, and distant shouts filled the air. Lyra grabbed Ethan's arm. "We need to go now." They ran through the outer gates, their cloaks whipping in the wind. The night air was cold, and the city lights faded as they entered the open plains. Behind them, the palace bells rang in warning. The royal air was gone. Hours later, after crossing rough terrain and silent valleys, they reached the edge of the Valora forest. The trees glowed faintly with blue veins of light, ancient and otherworldly. Ethan stopped to catch his breath. "Are we safe?" he asked. Lyra looked around cautiously. "For now," she said. "The forest hides those who seek peace, but not for long. The council will send hunters." Ethan looked at her, his voice soft. "Why risk everything for me, Lyra?" She hesitated, her expression gentle. "Because I believe you're the key to something greater, something our worlds forgot. The old legend spoke of a human who would return light to the stars. Maybe that light lives in you." Ethan didn't know what to say. The way she looked at him, with hope, not fear, made him feel something he hadn't felt in a long time. Lyra smiled faintly, her hand brushing his. "Rest now," she said. "Tomorrow we search for answers." As they sat beneath the glowing trees, the bond between them pulsed softly, steady and warm. But far behind them in the palace, Commander Thal rose from the rubble, his armor cracked but his rage burning bright. He looked toward the horizon where the twin moons shone and whispered coldly, "You can run, Lyra, but I will find you, and when I do, the human will die." The wind carried his words across the silent desert, reaching the edge of the glowing forest, where two souls rested under alien stars, unaware that their fight for love and truth had only just begun. The Valora forest was unlike anything Ethan had ever seen. The air shimmered faintly with light, and the trees pulsed with a blue glow that made the night look like dawn. Strange crystal vines climbed the trunks, humming softly as if alive. Every sound, the whisper of wind, the rustle of leaves, felt charged with ancient energy. Ethan followed close behind Lyra, still trying to process everything that had happened. His body ached from the fight, but the mark on his hand still glowed faintly, keeping his strength steady. They had been walking for hours, and the deeper they went, the quieter the forest became. It was peaceful, but in a strange, almost watchful way, like the forest itself was studying them. Lyra stopped suddenly and knelt beside a cluster of glowing stones. She touched one, and the symbols carved into its surface began to light up. Ethan watched as the ground beneath them shifted slightly, revealing a hidden path that descended underground. "This way," Lyra said softly. "We're close." Ethan followed her carefully, the path leading them into a large cavern. The walls shimmered with crystal veins that reflected the golden light from their marks. At the center of the cave stood an ancient altar, surrounded by tall pillars covered in alien writing. It looked older than anything he had seen on Vera, older than the palace, older even than the legends Lyra had told him. "What is this place?" Ethan asked quietly. Lyra stepped toward the altar, her voice gentle and filled with awe. "This is the sanctuary of the First Light," she said. "It was built long before my ancestors ruled. It's said to hold the memory of the first bond between human and Veyran blood." Ethan frowned. "You mean this happened before?" Lyra nodded. "Once, thousands of years ago, before war divided our kinds. A Veyran princess and a human warrior formed the first bond. Their union created peace, but fear destroyed it soon after. The royal families erased the truth from history." She looked back at Ethan, her eyes glowing softly. Now the bond has returned, through us. Ethan stepped closer, touching the edge of the altar. The moment his fingers brushed the surface, the entire chamber lit up. A rush of light filled the air, and ancient holograms flickered to life. Images of battles, stars, and two figures standing hand in hand beneath twin moons. One was clearly Varen, and the other, human, Ethan gasped. It's them. The first bond. Lyra's voice trembled slightly. Yes, and if the stories are true, they died protecting both worlds. As the vision continued, the images shifted to show a glowing blue crystal, massive, buried deep under Vera's surface. The same crystal appeared in Ethan's earlier visions. I've seen that, he said quietly. When we first bonded, Lyra turned to him, eyes wide. Then it's calling to you. Before Ethan could reply, the entire cavern shook violently. Dust and crystals rained from the ceiling. Lyra grabbed his arm. They've found us, she said urgently. They ran toward the tunnel entrance, but before they could escape, a squad of armored soldiers appeared, Commander Thal at their front, his face cold and furious. His armor was cracked from their last battle, but his eyes burned brighter than ever. I told you, Lyra, he said darkly. You can't hide forever. Lyra stepped forward, her blade drawn. You shouldn't have followed us here, Thal. This place is sacred, he smirked. Sacred or not, it ends tonight. He raised his arm, and the soldiers surrounded them, weapons glowing blue. Ethan felt the bond energy surge inside him again, wild and alive. The mark on his hand flared, and Lyra's did too. The golden light between them began to form a faint aura. Thal hesitated, his eyes narrowing. What are you doing? Lyra didn't answer. She looked at Ethan. Focus on the light, she whispered. Don't fight it. Let it guide you. Ethan closed his eyes. The energy within him grew stronger, spreading through his body like fire. He could feel Lyra's heartbeat inside his chest, their souls moving in sync. When he opened his eyes again, they glowed golden. The soldiers attacked first, but before they could strike, a wave of pure light burst from Ethan and Lyra. The force threw everyone back, knocking their weapons from their hands. The golden energy swirled around them, forming a protective barrier that shimmered like glass. Thal struggled to stand, his face twisted with anger. You think this power makes you gods? You're just fools blinded by a curse. Ethan took a step forward, the ground cracking beneath his feet from the energy. Maybe, he said firmly, but I won't let you hurt her. Thal roared and charged, his spear glowing bright blue. Ethan raised his hand instinctively, and the golden light clashed with Thal's weapon, creating a shockwave that filled the cavern with blinding light. The ground trembled violently and part of the ceiling collapsed. When the dust cleared, Thal was gone, buried under fallen stone. The soldiers, frightened, fled into the forest. Lyra dropped to her knees, breathing hard. The golden glow faded slowly from her skin. Ethan rushed to her side. Are you okay? He asked. She nodded weakly. I'm fine. But the bond took a lot of energy. Ethan looked around. The cavern was damaged, but the altar still stood, glowing brighter than before. The crystal in its center pulsed like a heart. Lyra reached out toward it. This crystal. It's the source of the bond, she whispered. The first light. It connects every soul that ever lived under our twin suns. Ethan looked at her, his eyes full of wonder. Then maybe it can tell us what comes next. She smiled softly, exhaustion in her voice. Maybe, but not tonight. We need rest. They moved deeper into the sanctuary and found a quiet corner beneath the glowing vines. Ethan sat beside her, their shoulders brushing. For a long time, neither spoke. The forest outside hummed softly, as if guarding them. Finally, Lyra whispered, You know, when I first saw you, I thought it was madness to choose a human. But now, I think it was destiny. Ethan looked at her, smiling faintly. Destiny or madness, I'm just glad you did. Lyra laughed softly, leaning her head against his shoulder. Get some sleep, Ethan. Tomorrow we find out what this bond really means. As her breathing slowed and the light around them dimmed, Ethan looked up at the glowing ceiling. The golden mark on his hand pulsed gently, matching the beat of Lyra's heart. But far beyond the forest in the city of Vera, a council of elders watched through energy screens. The king's face was pale, his voice low. They've awakened the first light. If the prophecy is true, the end of our world has already begun. And somewhere buried deep under the planet's surface, the great blue crystal began to crack. releasing a pulse of energy that echoed across the stars. The morning came softly over the Valora forest, painting the glowing leaves in shades of silver and gold. Ethan woke to the sound of gentle hums. The forest itself seemed alive, whispering in a language he couldn't understand. Lyra was already awake, standing near the altar, her cloak glowing faintly in the morning light. Her eyes looked distant, fixed on the pulsing crystal that had begun to crack the night before. He stood and walked toward her quietly. "Couldn't sleep?" he asked. Lyra shook her head slowly. "The forest dreams," she said softly. "It speaks to me." "To both of us," Ethan frowned. "Speaks? What's it saying?" She looked at him, her voice almost trembling. "That time is running out. The crystal's awakening isn't just a sign, it's a call. Something ancient is waking up beneath Vera." Ethan glanced at the glowing veins that now ran through the cave walls like roots. They pulsed faster than before, as if alive. "You mean the prophecy the king mentioned?" he asked. Lyra nodded. "Yes, the one that says when the first light returns, the sky will burn and the two worlds will become one again, or be destroyed trying." Her words hung heavy in the air. Ethan didn't fully understand all of it, but he could feel the tension inside her voice, fear, hope, and something unspoken. Suddenly, a strange vibration rippled through the ground and a deep rumble echoed from far below. The crystal in the altar pulsed violently, flashing bright blue. Lyra gasped, stepping back. "It's reacting to something. Or someone." Before Ethan could move, the golden mark on his hand started to burn, glowing brighter than ever. He clenched his fist, trying to bear the pain. "Lyra," he shouted. It's pulling me." Lyra grabbed his arm, trying to steady him, but the energy was too strong. A column of light shot up from the altar, surrounding them both. The cavern shook as their bodies lifted off the ground, caught in the beam. Ethan could barely breathe. Flashes of visions filled his mind. He saw stars exploding, cities burning, and a massive being made of light and shadow standing above a shattered planet. A deep, echoing voice whispered in his mind, "The bond must be tested. Only truth can save the worlds." Then everything went black. When Ethan opened his eyes again, he wasn't in the cavern anymore. He stood in a vast, empty field of glowing dust under a sky filled with strange constellations. Lyra was beside him, looking around in shock. "Where are we?" she asked. "I think inside the crystal," Ethan said quietly. "Or maybe inside the bond." Before they could move, the ground beneath them began to shift, forming shapes, figures made of light. They looked like the first bonded pair, the ancient human and Varen Lyra had told him about. The woman stepped forward, her glowing eyes gentle. "You carry what we once carried," she said. "The first light chose you to finish what we could not." Ethan took a cautious step closer. "Finish what?" The wind howled through the broken sky of Vera. Cracks of golden energy split the heavens apart, raining fragments of glowing dust onto the trembling planet below. Ethan stood alone in the ruins of what had once been the Valora forest, now reduced to blackened trees and dying light. The air was heavy, humming with unstable power. Every breath burned. He could feel it. The bond's energy tearing through the planet, searching for balance it could no longer find. The golden mark that had once connected him to Lyra was gone, but the light still lived inside his chest, faint and unstable, like a dying flame. "Lyra," he whispered into the wind. His voice broke. "Where are you?" There was no answer, only the echo of thunder. He fell to his knees, pressing a hand to the ground. The planet's pulse and the energy of Vera was fading fast. The forests, the seas, the cities, all of it would soon collapse into nothing if he didn't do something. But what could he do now that she was gone? Then faintly, a whisper brushed through his mind. Soft, familiar. "You're not alone, Ethan." He looked up sharply. The light in the sky shifted, and from the heart of the storm a glowing figure began to descend. She looked different now, almost ethereal, made of golden light and flowing energy. But her eyes were still the same. Lyra. Ethan's heart froze. "Lyra?" She smiled gently, her voice echoing in the air around him. "I'm here, but not as before. The Guardian's choice was made. The bond chose me to become its vessel." Ethan shook his head in disbelief, stepping toward her. "No, that means—" "It means I can't return," she said softly. "But I can still help you. You hold the other half of the light. The power to save both worlds. I'll guide you. One last time. Ethan clenched his fists, fighting the storm whipping around them. Then tell me what to do. Lyra raised her glowing hand and a beam of golden light shot from her palm into the sky, piercing the storm. The ground beneath them began to split, revealing the massive crystal core of Vera deep below. The same ancient heart they had seen in the sanctuary. It's breaking apart, Lyra said. The crystal is what keeps both worlds alive. You must restore it by giving it the light within you. Ethan's chest tightened. If I give it all, I'll die, she nodded sadly. Yes. He looked down, silent for a long moment as the world trembled around him. Finally, he looked up, determination burning in his eyes. Then that's what I'll do. Lyra's expression softened, pride, sorrow, and love all mixed in her glowing face. You were never meant to be just a protector, Ethan. You were meant to be the bridge, the one who connects what fear divided. He stepped closer to her, the storm raging harder now. I didn't choose this, he said. But I'll finish it. For you, Lyra smiled faintly. And I'll be with you, always. Ethan turned toward the chasm. The crystal heart pulsed violently, sending waves of unstable energy through the ground. He reached out his hands, feeling the power within him rise. Wild, bright, and infinite. The golden light poured from his chest, wrapping around his body like fire. Lyra's voice whispered through the storm. Now, Ethan, let go. He closed his eyes, and for a moment he saw her, standing beside him, her hand resting over his heart. Together they pushed the light forward. A massive surge of golden energy erupted from them, racing through the planet's veins. The skies burst open with light as twin beams shot toward the moons, stabilizing their orbit. The forests reignited with color, the oceans calmed, and the dying cities began to glow once more. The energy wave spread across the stars, reaching far beyond Vera, touching Earth itself, awakening forgotten memories of the bond that once connected both worlds. Then, silence. The storm faded. The ground grew still. The air was clear again. Ethan collapsed beside the now-healed crystal, his body weak, his heartbeat faint. Lyra's glowing form knelt beside him, her hand brushing his cheek. You did it, she whispered. The bond is whole again, he smiled weakly. Guess we passed the test. Her light began to fade slowly. The bond will remember us, she said softly. And maybe one day when the stars align again, we'll meet in another life. Ethan's eyes grew heavy. I'll find you, Lyra, no matter where. Or when. She smiled through tears of light. I know you will. As her glow dissolved into the wind, the crystal pulsed one last time, sending a small golden spark into the sky. It drifted upward, beyond the clouds, beyond the stars. Far away on a distant planet, a young woman looked up at the night sky and saw that golden star appear for the first time. She felt something deep inside. Something familiar. Something warm. She smiled without knowing why, and across the stars, a soft voice whispered, "The bond never dies." The screen fades to black. Golden text appears slowly, the end or the beginning.